Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately what happens is that you'll get a big open rate and then it'll decline as
Yeah.
people who signed up earlier will either stop doing it, or it's actually more like Google will end up just shoving stuff into social inbox and stuff like this. So it's algorithmically going to go down.
Yep.
And then unless you kind of like prune it and then you do CRM stuff, it will keep on going down till about 25.
It's crazy.
So if you're running a newsletter, which I think you are, aren't you? You've got to find a way to re-engage the people who've signed up, which is part of the reason why Brainfood Live existed. Like we thought, okay, maybe there's a way we can talk about the newsletter and stuff. So
That's we're
yeah,
all
but it's
learning
extra. It's
content
extra
marketing.
though. I know content marketing old school. Although in the world of AI, all of it's in the air. Like none of it makes sense anymore. So I don't
No,
know. I
you know
don't even
what?
know whether that's good practice.
I feel like newsletters are gonna be the way to connect to people. I mean, if people still write them, like I write all of mine, like none of it comes from AI. But maybe you're right. Maybe in the future it's all going to be AI written and everyone's going to be over their newsletters. But I've just
I,
started
I,
mine, so don't discourage me.
no. Keep going. I think the essential thing is keep your voice, and then if the people who you acquire now, they should stay with you if they
Yeah.
enjoy your voice, so to say. Anyway, folks, welcome to Brainfood Live on Air. It's episode 306, bringing it to you every Friday, no fail. And I'm delighted to be having this conversation with you today because it's always a good time to have a conversation with you. Why not end the week with a good chat about important topics in recruiting? So, folks, great to have you on the show. Let's do some sound checks real quick. I want to make sure everyone can hear and see me okay. So everyone in Crowdcast, if you can hear and see me and Jess on screen, let me know in the chat whether the audio and visual is fine. Let me just check whether we are broadcasting in the right places on LinkedIn and elsewhere. We should be blasting this out in a number of places. Okay, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, do let me know whether you can hear and see me okay there as well. Just drop a comment in there and let me know. I think we're looking good on chat, which is fantastic. Good to know. Okay, I think we're ready to go with this. Fantastic stuff. Folks, we have got a very interesting conversation with you today. Why? Because we've got some really interesting experimentation going on from some of our TA leaders who've gone through, I think, still the quite radical step of stepping away from CV-based hiring. This is a story that's been going on for a long while in our industry. But how many of us have actually done the task, got rid of the CV, ripped the Band-Aid off and said, right, we're not actually accepting this. We've got another way to try and assess talent. What does that mean? What can we learn from that? Is it actually something that's become more relevant now that we have the AI-generated world and the AI-generated CV? I think all of us are starting to see documentation that is obviously AI supplemented or even AI completely written, in which case there's such a standardization of the copy. It becomes like, what are we even looking at? Because you can't even tell the difference between one document or the next. So is transition to CV free hiring a way that is actually suitable now? Is the time come for this particular idea? So it's going to be very exciting for us to have this conversation. Actually, Jess, I wonder whether you've got some preliminary thoughts on that. I mean, is this a topic that's crossed your mind before, crossed your path in any way?
It has, just because I hate CVs. I hate writing them. I don't know if anyone else hates writing them, but I hate writing them. And I just don't think they're the most useful. As a hiring manager, I always found them not the best indicator of actually the people that I was hiring. I look at the resumes, and if I picked off the resume, I would have got a completely different candidate to the ones that I potentially had the chance to talk to, and you can vet them in a different way, or you've been able to like look at other elements and bring that in. I'm interested to see what people are actually doing, because it's always hard. If you don't have the CV, what do you use? I think that's my question. Like, where do we go?
Yeah.
And if you just move from a CV to something else, is AI then going to just take over that as well? Like, where does it end? So you've got to trust the human part of it. I think still a lot more than
I,
the paper part of it.
I think so. I mean, I'd be interested. We should do a quick poll on this actually, because how many of us are pro CV? I think the general sort of number will probably be pretty against. We all recognize it's a flawed document, but it's so persistent, and there has to be a systemic reason why it's persistent. Is because we need a system of record in some way. So it's going to be very interesting to explore this going forward. So let's figure out how we go. But before we kick off our conversation, we always have to thank our sponsors for Brainfood Live, because without our sponsors, we cannot go ahead with these conversations. And today's sponsors is one of our good friends, UK British a British recruitment tech startup, which is always fantastic to see. It's our friends at Willow.video. They are, of course, a recruiting product that is very heavily sort of aligned with this idea that the CV should be underweighted in our recruiting approach. Because they're doing a video-based assessment sort of flow, and I think you can learn a lot through that type of medium, more so than a CV. But let me not talk too much about it, because we do actually have the CEO of Willow on with us. So let's bring Ewan on, and he can tell us a little bit about it. I'd be interested in his take on this, actually, because CV-free hiring has been something he and I have talked about for a little while. So let's see what Ewan's got to say on the matter, and get his view as to why it doesn't happen. Ewan, great to see you, sir. How are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good to see you, man. Very good as always. Looking bright and fresh. Ewan, for the folks who don't know you, quickly introduce yourself. Who are you and what it is you do, man?
Thanks. I'm Ewan, so CEO and co-founder of Willow, and Willow, as you said, Hung, is a video assessment platform, and we are, as you said as well, correctly, very advocating of removing the CV or going CV free. So this is a really interesting conversation for us and our customers too.
Tell us a little bit about sort of your theory as to why it's a good thing, Ewan. I mean, why are you like pro getting rid of the CV? What's the general vibe here?
Absolutely. So when I created Willow, it was actually based on my own personal experiences, not only of writing CVs, like Jesse just said, but also reading CVs from candidates. And I have dyslexia, so writing a CV and reading a CV was even more of a problem than other people might find it. But yeah, I just found it difficult to actually assess candidates for who they really were. And a lot of my best hires that I actually made didn't have good CVs or even CVs at all. So the purpose of a CV for me didn't really sit right in the first place. That was the motivation behind starting Willow. And today, Willow is a full blown assessment platform that doesn't rely on a CV, but does enable employers to actually screen candidates and get all the information that they need from candidates, plus a lot more than you would ever get from a piece of paper with some words on it. So it's a smarter way of doing it. It's also faster for you, obviously, as a recruiter, but also as a candidate. Candidates don't need to sit down figuring out what to write in the CV. It's not going to be a great representation of them in the first place. And today, just to add to the simplicity and the ease of it, Willow actually has 1,000 pre-built assessments in the platform. So you don't even need to think about what you're going to ask candidates. You can choose from one of these pre-built assessments, ready to go. It's AI proof. We have fraud detection as standard in there too. So when you're getting these answers back from candidates, regardless of what job role it is, you're going to hear from them, you're going to see from them, you're maybe going to get some answers from them that you can score. You can, competency-based questions, all that kind of stuff, and you're going to get a much better, representation of candidates. And that's obviously not just me saying that. That's backed up by our customers. We've got over 5,000 customers now across the world, including folks like Toyota, New York State, and QVC. And obviously, Kara from QVC is joining us on this call. So looking forward to hearing from Kara later on.
That's
And
fantastic. Sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
I was going to say, actually, I did some testing for you guys at some point too,
You
doing
did.
and I actually liked it. Like, I'm not into the CV, like I said.
Actually liked it.
I
That's
actually
bloody
like. I was
charming.
no, I was like, oh, I don't really like this idea of being on video. Like, as a first step, I was like, I feel really awkward. But actually, you kind of I got to practice, and I could practice. I could record myself and be like, oh, that was terrible. Let me do it again. you know,
Yeah.
it was good, and I was like, I feel like if this was my chance to get in front of someone choosing, me for a job, I'd definitely go for my voice and me
Yeah.
talking about, answering these questions than over my written CV, which I know based on experience doesn't get through that often. Don't know why, but doesn't.
It should help unconventional career paths as well, shouldn't it? I mean, it's something you said there, you, yeah, I mean, your career path's all over the place, Jess. So, no, I'm joking. But it's like not the stereotypical thing. And I think part of
Absolutely.
the CV mantra is that we're looking for 3 years here, 3 years there, 4 years there. classic career progression. Anybody falls outside of that sort of stereotype, we kind of bomb out. And actually, yeah, is that actually the best person? It may just be that's the median way in which people go through. Perhaps that's just mediocre, and some of the better people or the individuals that might make a decisive difference to your business might have had really different type of career choices down the track. So yeah, I think that is very, very interesting sort of how a CV might be kind of a very hidden prejudice behind how we do it. What's your take with regards to AI, the era of AI? Because you've had the idea of CV3 for a while before AI, but now we're seeing sort of AI generated documentation, Ewan. Do you think that sort of increases the relevancy of alternative ways to assess?
100%. Yeah. I mean, it was obviously we didn't know that AI was coming and it was going to do what it did when we launched Willow, but thankfully for what we offer, AI has actually given Willow even more opportunity to be used in organizations. We, for example, are assessing candidates based on spoken word, immediate responses, both on audio and video. That's the kind of stuff that you can't, chuck into ChatGPT and get an answer from. We're also using, AI detection. So even if you did try and use AI, the employer at the other end knows that you've used AI. Now, obviously, they can decide whether or not to do anything with that signal. And some of our customers, encourage the use of AI. So it's not saying that's a bad thing. But I think what's really interesting is that Willow just adds this extra layer of personality and an extra layer of human that you can't get from a CV. And obviously, CVs and AI are sort of, they're the AI functionality that candidates have now is going to probably end the CV for good over the next few years because it's going to become so relevant. And I guess to add to that as well, we have over the past few years built out this identity checking feature. And obviously, we know a lot about AI and avatars and things being used. One of the nice features that Willow has is this ability to check candidates are actually who they say they are. So we do government documents versus their face and do all that matching. And that's global as well. So you're not only getting audio, video questions answered, but you're also getting a thumbs up or thumbs down to actually, is the person sitting behind this computer legitimate who they say they are?
I didn't realize you were going to do the ID verification side, but that's banging, Ewan. I don't know whether you saw the show a couple of weeks ago where we had sort of the deep fake sort of example.
Yeah,
And one
I
of
did.
the
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like literally the candidate was deep faking on the thing, and it was like, imagine pushing that candidate through to your hiring manager. I mean, that's it couldn't be more of a catastrophic thing for a recruiter to do.
Absolutely.
So we
Really
have to
creepy.
put.
Just saying, like that creeps me out that people do that. And I'm so glad there's technology that can identify it.
It's scary how much that might have just got through the gates before we become aware of that problem, because obviously we're in remote, we're not always on camera, you pass through that screen, you do everything on Slack or Teams or whatever, and then boom, you might have actually got someone who isn't who they say they are on your payroll, and that is a massive problem. Okay, Ewan, listen, really good to get that update. Where do people find out more information about Willow and all of the things that you can do for employers?
Absolutely. So head over to www.willow.video, and that's WILLO. And I'll put a link in the chat as well, so you can click on that. You can obviously request a free demo there, as we do demos every single day, 30 minutes. You can see how it works. Or you can actually sign up and start using it today. So you could be using Willow by the end of the day if you want.
Indeed. So, and there's also a very good support sort of link there shared by Rachel, which is how you do how that sort of identity check sort of feature works as well. So fantastic stuff.
Absolutely.
Willow.video, folks, check it out. Ewan, thanks a lot for coming on screen. We'll try and get you back a bit later, but let's bring on some of our guests and talk about this particular topic. Great to see you, man.
Thank you. You too.
Yes, it was very creepy, wasn't it? The deep. I'm waiting for it to happen to me. It's yet to occur, but when it does, I kind of want to get the sensation of being creeped out. It'd be actually quite interesting. But let's see how we go.
Sensation ever. Like, please, I will never sleep at night if that happens to me.
You need to prepare yourself, because I think it's going to happen. Okay, let's bring on our guests here. Let's see what we got. Okay, we got Matthias, we got Cara. Who did we say? We got Toby. I think he's coming. Toby, I can't find him. And we have JT actually all the way from Atlanta. Let's see, JT's there. Oh, there's Cara. How are you doing, Cara? Oh, Kara's muted. I wonder whether we have that classic mute scenario going on, where you've got to kind of like. By the way, Crowdcast, this is a support request. Please don't default people to mute when they come on. Kara, can you hear us? Okay. Yeah, but I think you're still muted, and I believe that's probably because. Yeah,
No?
I think what we might have to do, we might have to leave the event and then bring you back. But when the modal comes in, go and accept it to say, okay, we check box to say it's okay that you're that you want to be on audio, basically. I'll bring you back in, Carol. Give me a sec.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to JT. JT, hopefully you can hear us. Can you hear us and say something, please? Yes, you can.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Great.
Great to see you, JT. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
JT Haskell. I'm Director of Recruiting for Flock Safety. It's a startup here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Fantastic stuff. Great to have you on the show, JT. I believe your first time. I don't know whether this is the second time or maybe the first.
Second time.
It's the second. I do beg your pardon. I'm sure you were very memorable first time round. But
you got to give us T-shirts for the first one, Hong, and then we'll wear them the second time.
We need a number. We all have a number. How many episodes have been on? 3, 2. Yeah.
I should actually do that. We have Matthias Schmiese here as well. Matthias, great to see you. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Oh, you're muted.
Matthias is muted as well. Terrible. Okay, Matthias, try and fiddle with something. We've got Tony McCaffrey here, though. Hopefully, Tony can hear us.
Hi,
Tony, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, great to see you, Tony. Fantastic. Can you quickly introduce yourself, who you are, what it is you do?
Thanks, Hung. I'm Tony McCaffrey. I'm Chief Exec of Diversity Scotland, which is an equity inclusion consulting practice specialising in inclusive recruitment.
Yeah, fantastic. And you did you had some great commentary on one of the topics we kicked off on LinkedIn, which is why I brought you on the show, Tony, because of course there's a massive inclusion angle when it comes down to changing, sort of shifting away from CV based. So very important for diversity as well. Cara, I hope you can hear and see us okay. How's the audio treating you? No, we still got no voice. I wonder whether it's something to do with the mic, I guess. Cara, we can't hear you, I'm afraid. No, maybe we disable the headsets and go straight to the mic on the computer. I wonder whether that helps. No, we still have no audio. Oh, you're back. There you go.
I've unplugged. There we go.
Okay, there we go. Great to see you, Cara. Thanks for bearing with us on this. Cara, can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
Yeah, my name is Cara Heward. I'm the Talent Acquisition Manager for QVC UK and Italy.
Fantastic. Great to have you on the show, Cara. And Matthias, great to see you. Hopefully you can hear and see us as well. Do the same thing as Cara if you can't. It might be a case of unplugging your...
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're there. Yeah, you're good.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah. For me, it was the settings, by the way. It went default to a different mic. But anyway, I am a VP People of Amnify and happy to be here. I've been also a former talent leader, so really excited about the topic.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Let's kick it off. CV free hiring. Why is it not more common? Does anybody have a theory as to why it's so persistent? Why you guys on screen are actually quite marginal? Like you're quite weird in the recruitment industry that you've had experience of moving away from it. Most of us are still processing CVs. Why? What's the thoughts?
I think it's harder in general because you have to do a lot more vetting up front. You have to prepare a lot more to kick off, have great application questions that you're going to go through, or however you're going to vet, whatever the process may be. The traditional way of just reading a resume, which most recruiters, once you're good at this, and you can scan through one in maybe 5 or 6 seconds and see what the main points of what you're looking at. And anybody who's not a recruiter that is horrified by it, it's 5 or 6 seconds. It's about what it is. We're looking for keywords. We're flying through it. So if you want to do this well, you're going to have a lot more verbiage to read through. If it's going to be in a video format, audio format, or written format, it just takes longer on average. But I would argue that once you get good at this actually can start to move faster as well. And start opening it up. However, the reason I reached out to you, Hong, about this is the company where I did it. We went from hiring 50 to 100 people. No, pardon me, 50 people one year and then 150 the next year. So to 3x our capacity while continuing to do this was a bit of a struggle. but we continue to do this all the way up and through hiring 400 a year. So it can be done, but it does take great training, great preparation to pull it off.
Okay, I'm really pleased that you said that, JT. We have to accept that one of the barriers is learning to do something new or different from what we've traditionally used to is going to have that ramp time at least. And we're going to be slower to begin with. It's going to slow us down. So you have to take a temporary drop in productivity, quote unquote, in order to get there. However, according to you, JT, it might just be okay. Once you get into the rhythm, you start speeding up on that as well, and actually the time to hire might reduce sort of accordingly. Okay, Matthias, you got any thoughts on this? Let's go around. Actually, I think I want everyone's view on this particular question. Why is it that it isn't more widely adopted? What's your view?
Yeah, I think it's status quo bias. I don't know if you heard about this, but this is very much like something that why would I change this, right? And maybe I have the belief that the current status quo of recruitment is actually not that bad, right? And if I've done this all the time, why would I change, right? So I think this is very much of a sentiment that people have to say, oh, what would that mean? They are unsure about what actually is going to happen. And maybe your role will be questioned after a certain period of time, right? So I think this is also a huge part of people just stay where they are and don't listen to the facts because they believe like, this is something new. Where does it get me? So many challenges. I don't have so much time. We are forced to do more with less. Why would I actually take this? Yeah.
Yeah, really good point. Status quo bias. We all start with looking at CVs. There's no doubt about that, right? And then no one starts looking at video first. It is basically the first thing we learn. It's almost like the first thing we eat or the first kind of language we hear. That's default, and we have to shift from default. Very difficult. Tony, let's get your view on this.
Yeah, thanks. I agree with what both JT and Matthias have said. I think the sentiments from the three key different stakeholder groups that I found are from hiring managers, I need to see the candidate's background. And my response has been, well, what does that really tell us about performance? From recruiters, it's more admin. And my response is, well, there's a long-term gain in efficiency and quality. And then with candidates themselves, some feel really unsure at first, especially those that are very confident that their CV tells a great story. And I think it's about reassuring them of fairness and clarity in the questions or whatever way you're going to assess their competence and their skills.
Yeah, really good point. Don't forget the candidate. I mean, there's some candidates that think, yes, my CV is a problem. I'd love to have an alternative. But then there's others that have probably made decisions in their career in order to polish the CV. And they're thinking, man, this is my best
money
thing.
To have it written.
Yeah, exactly.
There's also the element of people who, although I like video and I liked Willow's, product, the video element, a lot of people are scared to be on video, right? So it's like there's one side, and some people also, depending on their neurodiversity, can struggle with video. So, there's also things we have to consider there. I don't know how that was handled with you, JT, or how you do it. I'd love to hear more about it. But yeah, just consideration. Good that you brought it up.
That's a good point. We'll swing back into this because we think that sort of non-CV might be more inclusive, but inevitably, whatever thing we use is going to be excluding some population in some type. Yes. Cara, let's go to you because you're actually one that's probably got the freshest experience. Because I understand that you've very recently sort of made a shift, at least in some parts of your recruiting here. Tell us a bit about this, but tell us also why you think it's not as widely as adopted as it maybe should be.
So we've decided to remove CVs for our graduates. Two reasons. Firstly, you're only going to find that a graduate has maybe worked in a bar or in a shop and nothing relevant to the career they're going for, number one. Number two, sometimes there's a bias for the course they're doing. So I work for QVC. We're looking for graduates that are buying and merchandising digital store. So if I was to put the CV in front of the hiring manager, they're looking for a graduate that has either had a fashion degree or a digital marketing degree or something like that. But we're then putting, I don't know, English and classics in front of them. And originally, if they saw that on a CV, they would say, no, I'm not interested. But put them in front of a video, get their personality out, and then you've got something completely different. When you're a grad, you haven't started yet. You haven't got anything to talk about on your CV. Okay, you can maybe, you were, I don't know, you put together some sort of project or on your degree or something like that, but there's nothing there really that will show your personality. So we actually do work with Willow, but any kind of video tool like that will take away that bias. The other thing that Willow does, which is quite interesting, and flipping back to what we were saying about neurodiversity, they also do audio. So you don't even have to sit there and put your face to the screen. You can just chat. So I think there's something there. And also with neurodiverse people, writing a CV sometimes can be really, really tough. My daughter's got ADHD, and getting her to sit down and write a CV would be a disaster. Put her in front of a screen, and these kids, I mean, I'm in my 50s, so they're all kids to me. These kids have been in front of screens since they've been weaned on screens. So it's not a difficult thing for them. That's what they're used to. They're on TikTok all the time. In fact, if my kid hasn't got something like that in front of them, then, you know, I don't know what's going on. Something, they're ill. So, yeah, we just found it was amazing. We took the CVs totally away from the hiring managers, and we just got fantastic people and personality. And there wasn't a lot of dropout rate. We thought there would be quite a few people that would see that you need to do a video and drop off, but actually there wasn't a lot of drop-off rate.
What ratio? Sorry, Cara. What ratio did you expect, and what ratio of dropout did you get?
So we had sort of during COVID, we trialed a different video. Sorry, Willow. We tried a different business, and we were having, it was about 50% didn't take it, but I think it was more like 75% that did take this time. And if they can be bothered to take it, then they're definitely worth they're worth coming. If they can't be bothered to take the video, then is that the sort of person we want anyway?
That's a good signal. There's lots of things there. One thing you mentioned, I thought I would just want to sort of dive down on a little bit, is that even at the graduate level, you detected the hiring managers were making decisions based on academic decision making that the candidates, sort of the graduates, are making. So how did you spot that trend? How did you do that analysis?
Well, even to the point where we're looking for, say, a merchandiser, and someone's done a design degree, they automatically assume that if you've done design, you can't do numbers. So it's that sort of bias that they just make an assumption that if you're creative, you're not good at numbers. If you're good at numbers, you're not creative. And that's at a very, very base level. So we just wanted them to see that raw personality before anything. And then, and this was our first stage. The other thing it did was we were able to show these videos, it wasn't just my decision whether someone would go forward for the next stage. It's the decision of 5 people in the hiring team, because these are the grads are the most important things for us. They're our next CEOs, they're our next VPs. So we do have quite a few people that watch those videos that can make that decision of who to go to the next step. And so it takes away the bias of that one person as well. It mitigates that. I think a CV can be very, very divisive rather. So yeah.
Okay, very, very good. Let's think about sort of the sort of populations where a non-CV I mean, is it suitable for every role and every scenario, or are there particular situations where you think actually a non-CV is good? I think graduate, most people intuitively say, yeah, that makes perfect sense, precisely as you mentioned, Cara, because there isn't actually a track record really to speak of. And we know we maybe can't trust the academic management of potential in any case. So, these are raw material. JT, I think your example at Reddit was more because people just didn't have CVs or they wouldn't produce them, right? Because they were too elite as engineers, I guess. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, is it suitable in every case, or are there certain populations or recruitment roles where you think actually we kind of need CVs? Is it universal or specific? What are our thoughts here?
I think that you can do this for any role, and it comes down to just having the time to put this through. I think there's some good training that you have to do up front as well to ask the right questions. So the only way that I've done this is just through very detailed application question process. And every job I have found it, I've worked at a lot of tech companies over the years. A product manager is rarely the same from company to company as far as like their scope and what they do. So to hire a generic product manager, you want to ask specifically, like, where does your job begin and end in your PM roles in the past? Have you taken a product from 0 to 1 million in ARR? And really go through that finite detail for them to be able to say that. Very few people are going to express in their resume what is relevant to your job. So ask them in the app process and say, help me understand how you're a great fit for this. And then they can expound upon that and do a great job. And I think this is relatively true even at the executive level. We want to understand scope of your position. How many people reported up through you? What was the state of the organization when you got there? What was it after you left? What were your big accomplishments? What have you delivered? All these things that are going to be relative to you as far as like scale and speed and how you like to operate. Let them show how good they are in that. And the resumes are really tough to figure that out. So I think from a recruiter perspective, it's a huge advantage. It's really going to cut down on your time to do your initial recruiter screens as well, because you're going to have all these questions answered up front. It also makes that first call a lot more, lot easier and a lot more affable, because you're like, I feel like I kind of know you a bit, so let's dig deeper and really let them shine in this process. And then again, going back to the bias side, you're going to start to find that there's people that you probably would have never reached out to or considered for these roles that are like, wow, this person's amazing. And one thing I can say, when I was at Zapier, a trend that we found were former teachers were phenomenal, because they had to do everything themselves, particularly if they worked in a public school system. They get very little support. They have to write. They write really well. They communicate really well because they have to communicate with children and parents and the administration. So you have lots of audiences. So we found that anybody who was a teacher in the past and has transitioned to something else ended up being great. They're just really great employees, and particularly at a company like Zapier, where communication skills are critical because most of the communication is written. It was a great way to give us even more signal as to how good you would be when you got there from a cultural fit.
Can I ask just quickly on because you said you did like an intake kind of questions rather than the CV kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did you strip back? You didn't ask then about gender, right? What school you went to, and all these kinds of things, like where you live and stuff that people generally put on their resume.
Only if there were specific restrictions to that role. And we did ask where you're located, because sometimes we're fully remote companies. We try to get teams within like 5 time zones of each other. So we try to ideally hire within those ranges, or just make sure you weren't in a country where we legally couldn't hire you. And that was about it.
Are you a Jessie female? And what is your background? What is your origin?
Hang on, but sometimes you do collect that. I mean, that's a different debate. Like, when do you collect the demographic data for DE&I purposes, and how do you give opt-in, opt-out? So I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I do take your point, Jesse, that it's a case of like stripping out a lot of the biographical data, because that's not necessarily component what's interesting for the business. It's like, do you have the motivation, the aptitude, the capability to do this job? Matthias, I want to bring you in here, because you
as well. Most regions as well, that data needs to be collected separately and kept separately anyway. So taking it from a CV is really not where you want to be getting it. So
Yep, very good point, Tony. Matthias, I want to bring you in, because you've been pretty aggressive with Emnify on this, haven't you? Tell us about, which is not like you, gentle guy that you are. But can you tell us a little bit about sort of what your sort of motivation was to shift to this approach?
Yeah. So imagine for the people who are working in startups and scale-ups. It's probably also happened for other companies. You come into hiring cultures that are very biased, pedigree recruiting all over the place, right? And literally, you want to understand, how do we increase quality per hire, or let's say hire decent people, right, to begin with. I have seen that people were so obsessed about the CV that they'd be like, look, they have worked in these companies, they must be great, they have been in this role for so long, this is an indication that they high likely be great in what they do, even up to the point where I had a former executive saying to me, you cannot assess or test their proficiency or their functional skills because, I mean, it's written in the CV, we must trust people. And I'm like, oh my God, this is not how it works. And so literally what really helped me is, without setting up a training and a coaching to begin with, because I needed to hire quickly, I said, look, why don't we just get rid of it completely? And I trialed it with a role. Because also, to be fair, so you sometimes forget this as TA people or people, we also have biases, right? We also make poor decisions on a daily basis. We talk about the biases of the business, but so much like our own biases with the role that I then started with this is very much like, yeah, I was aware that I hired somebody. When I would have looked at her resume, I would probably say, okay, give her a try, but I would never thought that she would end up as our perfect hire. And I did this also, one last sentence, with a CRO role, right? So we really try to skill-base this and do not look so much on the resume, because in the end of the day, why should a hiring manager look at a resume to begin with? If they have a recruiter that kind of understands the brief, the recruiter presents a couple of candidates, and then based on that feedback, you decide, hey, this is why I invited this person, and here I assess this, the core skills or social skills, and this is why you are talking to that person. And I think, the hiring manager's CV topic is only in very immature places where hiring managers screen resumes themselves. Why would they ever do this? This is literally a recruiter's job. Oh, maybe they've hired all the recruiters and that's why they do it. But like, honestly speaking, this is a little bit where this is also bizarre, right? Like what kind of conversation do we have? We have a conversation to say, you're a recruiter, you're based on the candidates that you deliver, you've been rated, right?
Well, hang on. I totally get what you're saying. We're all nodding away and saying, yes, Matthias, you're right. But with regards to the hiring manager, I can totally understand that they're going to say, yeah, of course I need to see the CV. I mean, that is basically, I can imagine that is probably the biggest objection, isn't it? Where hiring managers, they'll be shocked when you come to them and say, oh, no CVs, just meet these people. They're going to say, no, I need to see the CV. Actually, let's objection handling. Go to this. Cara, when you sort of launched this idea, I mean, was my presumption correct that the hiring managers were like kicking off about this or what?
We kind of didn't tell them. We just did it. Well, we very slowly kind of crept into our ways of working. So I literally had a conversation today with one of my team who said, I have a hiring manager. He's asked me to find, it's in finance. They want someone with a bit of personality that's going to fit nicely with the team. It doesn't matter if they're not qualified, but if they've got quite an interesting commercial background, yeah, that would be fabulous. So she has done her due diligence. She's spoken to a few people, sent off her CVs to the hiring manager, and he's come back and said, no, they're not right. So I've said to her, why did you send the CVs to the hiring manager? Just call him, tell him the conversation you've had with these candidates, send your notes. Do not let him see a CV, because he's not looking for those skills. What he's looking for is that personality that's going to fit with the team and someone that's going to work really well, that has experience, yes, that knows what they're doing, yes, but they're not necessarily a qualified accountant, but have worked within that business and have a really good commercial background. And the minute he looked at a CV, he went completely against everything that he said in the first place, which happens all the time, because they say one thing and then they'll see a CV and then they'll well, they haven't got this, they haven't got this, they haven't got this, and then we're very much like, well, that's not what you asked for. So putting people in front of them, giving them a story, telling them about a personality, telling them about this team fit, why they'll be good for the team, that is what you need to give your hiring managers, not a piece of paper with a list of things on it.
I think just adding to that, it's also really important, though, that what we're providing to hiring managers is completely evidence-based. And this is where a big objection will come up first, is the amount of work, as JT mentioned, that needs to go in at the start of the process in order to identify exactly what it is that's needed in order to be successful in the role. So myself, my teams, when I've worked in RPO, when I've worked in-house as a director of talent, even in my role right now, working with hiring managers and so on and so forth, we put in the effort up front and the time up front to come up with a set of questions which we're able to evidence, and we're able to score answers objectively using a matrix. So for example, one that we just did recently was for a geologist for an oil and gas company. So we're asking questions like, provide an example of how you identified and matured an exploration prospect from concept through to drilling. You're not going to get that from a CV, whereas you've then got follow-up questions and you've got criteria around that, and the candidate has to answer that up front if they want to be considered. We've then got like-for-like comparison, able to score it against a really clear evidence-based matrix, which is far more important than the person's personality or their perceived team fit, which is in itself hugely problematic and open to bias.
I'm liking what you're saying, Tony, and I just want to add that I think where we start and where we fall off, or a lot of times I see we fall off, is because we don't actually know what we want. Like, we don't have a job architecture. We don't know what job we're actually trying to fill. It's the manager's like, I think I want a person like this. It's like, it's not a person. You've got skills that are lacking in the business and you need to deliver something for the business. And what are those lacking skills that create a job profile or job architecture? And then you can really easily do the step that you're talking about, which is, well, let's get questions that we can then attain those evidence for those skills that we need. And I think that's where we fall off a lot, because I don't see a lot of businesses doing that first step. The proper
we don't do the job design. We need to do inclusive job design for every role before we even enter the recruitment process.
And what are the skills we need in that job? And then we can start to move to CV, free hiring, I think, because then it's much easier. But if you don't really know what you're looking for, and you are really going off things that are quite biased, then the CV is perfect for that. Because then people can just read whatever they want into a piece of paper, whoever's hiring, and you'll get 5 different candidates winning a job depending on who's looking at the CV. And it's also why hiring teams, one more thing, why hiring teams come back to, what do you think? I don't know. Yeah, maybe. And they can't really make a decision because they're not choosing based on, do these skills fit this job? It's like, do we like the person? I don't really know. There wasn't really anything in there, and you can't really put a finger on it, but it's because the structure is so bad at the front. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents on there, but I totally love what you're saying, Tony.
I love what Tony is saying as well, but I was about to disagree on something, but I think JT's going to disagree for me. So he's sitting there looking as if he's not.
Sorry to disappoint you. I'm going to +1 it. It just kind of made me think too, where I've had objections to this in the past, and where I have tried to institute this is where we do see clear bias in the hiring, and it just becomes a cycle of, well, we only want people from this company. It's the safe bet. Like, I can't go wrong if I hire out of Google or Meta or whatever we're hiring out of. But the stage of that team and the stage of the product may not be right for that scale of an employee to come in. And so we keep missing. So removing it away, one place I've had some success is we had these general technical screens. Like, every backend engineer went through the same interview, regardless of what team, front end, mobile, whatever it was. It's like, we're already doing it there. We don't care where they came from. These teams never see the resume. They just jump on the call, they run them through the tech screen, they get off. See, can they pass the bar for us on technical perspective? So if we can do it there, why can't we do it everywhere else on the behavioral side? And I think this is particularly true for managers. If you don't have a standard bar for leadership in your business of like what a people leader should be and be able to do, where any people leader across the company can come in and interview any people leader, that's potentially coming into the company, and set the bar. I think that's another place too where you're probably not structured in the right way, have your cultural and behavioral values set in the right way to actually assess and screen across the entire company.
And
that's a really sorry, Jesse, I want to just underline that a really important insight. Actually, the capability of your interviewers is got to be at a certain level, hasn't it? Because we can't just assume people know how to do it. Maybe leaning on CV, the commitment to CV might actually be a part of weakness of interviewing, for instance, or they're not confident in how else to assess. Therefore, of course, let's lean on the CV, 2-1 degree, and you're on the graduate side, Cara. I'm sure you get plenty of that saying, how first class from Imperial must be amazing. And then the analogy from experience is, brilliant because of Google. And it's like, no, maybe not a good fit actually for your business at this time for that particular role. Folks, this is a fantastic conversation. We're flying through this, but we always have to do a mini break in the middle of every show. Reason why is because we always do have to come off air at some point. And it would be a terrible thing for us to come off air and kind of end this conversation, because clearly it has more to go with. The best thing to do if you want to continue having this conversation is, of course, to connect with everyone else who's involved in it, and then continue this offline in a different place, on a different platform, as sort of without having us being a bottleneck on here in Brainfood Live. So grab your LinkedIn URL, share it in the chat stream right now, and just connect with everyone else who's done the same. If you're watching this on LinkedIn or any of the LinkedIns that have been broadcast, just do the same. Grab your LinkedIn, drop it in the comments, and then you've got a bunch of people there that should be doing the same thing. Connect with everyone there, and they're going to be interested in this topic. So there's a bunch of people there. You can immediately go and continue this dialogue going forward. Okay, good stuff. Let's talk about how certain things have been clear, kind of percolating through this wonderful conversation so far. So firstly, we need to have some kind of sort of understanding of what we're looking for. The definition of role or the definition of the skills we're looking for is important. Skills, attributes, we probably need to be clear on the terminology there as well. But what is it we're looking for? We've got to have consensus on that. So presumably we need to have some sort of method of securing that consensus. Like, how do we do this? Is there a way to do this better or not? Any thoughts on that? Like, how do we get the buy-in from hiring managers, I guess, is another way of putting it.
I mean, I'm going to say there's some tech for that, like the whole skills assessment, and there is a lot of tools out there that do that now. Actually, also I think Microsoft just released their, like, it was in your newsletter, right? Their Copilot on skills
taxonomy. Yep.
Yeah, the skills taxonomy. It's about understanding what's in your business, where do you need to go, and what are the gaps, right? And I think there's technology that does that. In the lack of that not being there, because a lot of businesses don't have that, let's be honest. It's a matter of starting it. I think it's knowing that you need to do it and having the maturity to have foundations in a business. And if you really want to change things, then like JT did, there is a period of change. You're gonna have to start somewhere. And I don't know. I don't know if there's a better way to do it other than to accept it takes time and investment into doing these things. Either you get tech, or you get a framework, or you whatever, but you agree. And I think it's part of your people strategy. It's part of your business strategy. It's like the most critical thing.
And it may actually be different. I mean, I can just see already from the panelists here that everyone's like had slightly different strategies, haven't they? So I think, Matthias, I think you did like a small experiment to be honest, didn't you? Like, I'd isolate one role, let's throw it in there. Cara, it looks like you just swept it across the graduate piece.
I didn't think everything is to do with skills. It's behaviors as well. Leadership behaviors are so important because there are so many people that have the same skill set, but if you don't have the right behaviors, you're not going to be able to make those skills work. So I don't think you can just look at skills on their own. There's a lot more to it.
Okay.
And the behavior side, I guess, is the side that you can't get from a CV. That's the bit. That's the like the magic also.
Did anyone see Stephen Bartlett's culturetest.com release that he did this week? I think it was where he talks about how he's narrowed it down, speaking to all the thousands of CEOs and all their hiring and everything, that it comes down to behavior. And how to identify those behaviors pre-hire. He has He just released a waitlist for his tool Culture. I think it was culturetest.com. I don't know, not sponsored, nothing like that. It was interesting because he really did come out and say, you know, behaviors are the thing. So I'm like +1 on that, Cara, because you're right, skills and behaviors combined. It's just how do we who's got behaviors as part of like job assessment specifically? Like, do any of you do that? Like, really break it down, like the behaviors like in our business, and you do that properly for your job assessment?
Yeah, we have leadership behaviors in our business. Everyone is a leader, whether you're a leader of yourself or a leader of people or a leader of business. Everyone is a leader. Everyone knows their behaviors, and we all our job specs go through our behaviors, all our leadership competencies, all our questions have got them embedded into it. All our adverts have got the competencies embedded into it. So everything is part that runs through our DNA. So it's really important to us, the leadership skills.
Okay, so I'm hearing that, just for people who kind of listening in and not quite sure what we mean when we distinguish between behaviors and skills. Behaviors is essentially observable actions, how it manifests, how those skills like manifest in the workplace. And there'll be a story or a description as an example of that would illustrate this. And I guess the theory is, when we're interviewing someone, those people need to be able to recount examples that would illustrate similar things. Now, interestingly, if we're talking about video interviewing, because you've implemented a video interview to do this, Cara, like one of the ways to do this at scale, I guess, is to do it on video. So all of people might listen to this. Yes, it's a lot of work. Goodness, does it mean we have to interview every 1,000 people per job? Well, actually, no, because we have some technology that can help us with this. But how realistic is it to use video interview to produce these answers that would provide that evidence? I mean, like, how do you structure the questions such that they can produce that sort of response, Cara? Can you give us, I guess, an example of question design? Is that the word?
I was going to say, you're going to want me to tell you a question now, and I can't think of one on the top of my head because I've gone blank. But basically, and this is where I have used AI. I know we were talking about how bad AI is, but at QVC, we've got a phenomenal AI team, and they've built us a tool. And they built me well, not me specifically, but the recruitment team, a phenomenal tool that has baked in our behaviors. So you can basically feed in a job spec and ask the AI to come up with some questions based on our leadership behaviors, and AI will come up with a good amount of questions for you, and then you can use those questions. But we also have questions set that we give to all our hiring managers, so everyone is asking the same questions, so that it's very fair. So you're not changing your questions, but each level has got the same amount of questions, and they're all to do with the behaviors. But in terms of designing, we can use our AI tool to design those questions based on the skills in your job description and based on our behaviors. So yeah, it's pretty good. Sorry if you can hear noise in the background. I think there's someone playing football or something outside. Sorry.
Not a problem at all, Cara. Quite entertaining, actually. So not an issue.
A cheering fun.
Let's switch to the inclusivity aspect of it. I've come up with a presumption and say, hey, listen, they should expand the talent pool, because we're getting rid of things like academic grades, for instance. I think it's an obvious one, which it kind of increases the talent pool. Let's say we get rid of the prestige brands of companies and so on. Again, expansion of. But there's also maybe a narrowing at times, because we've talked about some people might struggle with video, or people might, wouldn't be. There's a way to do it in a non-inclusive way. How do we make sure, if we do a video assessment, that we do make it kind of accessible and as friendly as possible to as welcoming as possible to as many people? Tony, I guess this is your wheelhouse in terms of specialism, so I've got to start with you. Any thoughts or recommendations that you have here?
Sure. So I think there's a few different considerations. So first of all, we're looking at video. Is that now, and I speak from the perspective of as an autistic person. So I definitely have a lack of comfort with certain types of video communication, or particularly impromptu communication. I have to take a bit of time to prepare myself for things like this. I get very conscious of my body language. I'm really mindful of things like, could I be stimming? Could I be ticking in any way that is going to put off a reviewer of that video? So the fact that Cara said that you can do audio on platforms like Willow, for example, is great. Audio only would certainly be one way of going, but also allowing people to have a practice run so they can get used to the technology. They can have a sense of what it's like. So I know that some platforms that I've used in the past as a head of TA or whatever, we have been able to set up practice opportunities for individuals so that they can get used to the climate, the environment that they're in. If there's an opportunity to provide questions up front to people, then we should definitely do that as well. Are we expecting people to answer on the spot? Particularly if it's just a one way and you're answering a computer, you're answering a screen, a question coming up. That's quite a lot of investment and energy for a candidate to do without getting anything back. So you need to be mindful of the toll that can take on individuals. So how interactive is it? What feedback is the candidate receiving so that it feels like a worthwhile experience for them, rather than just talking into a void and feel like they're engaging with the audio version of ChatGPT, so there has to be some level of warmth around it. And one of the ways I would say to achieve that is to ensure that any one-way video interviewing or on-demand video interviewing has real life staff members, real life colleagues introducing the questions, asking the questions, rather than it just being words popping up on a screen, and having a variety of people so that you can get a sense of, what the breadth of personality and character and experience is within the organization that you're applying to work for. So I think from that video perspective, there's certainly some things there that you can do. If you're using application forms, if you're using other forms or questionnaires that do away with the CV, then that's a whole other story, and I could take loads of time talking about that.
No, really good point. I think reciprocity is huge. JT, I'll bring you in a second, but essentially I love the idea that if you're going to ask someone to do a one-way video interview, I think maybe the hiring manager should record 30 seconds, 60 seconds to talk about why that's important, or maybe explain the job in some way. Why is that too hard to do? Rather than just throw people hey, record this, you've got to come up and just demonstrate actually you're totally cool doing the same thing. So JT, go ahead.
I think it's also important, if you do create potentially a lot of friction in your application process, that you enable people to have the time to go through it. So I think like Jim Miller and his team at Ashby do a really good job, where they post and say this job will be open until June 3rd. So take your time, prepare for it, and then submit your best quality work. And I think if you do that for these processes as well, it takes that pressure off, particularly in this talent market the way it is, and the pressure for candidates to get their applications in so fast. Like, we don't want that. We want you to do quality, not speed. The job's going to be up for this amount of time. Please take your time to complete this and get your best work in.
All right, quick. I'm going to just double click on this. Quality, not speed. Why don't companies just say that? Like, literally say it onto their job description or the job ad and say, listen, don't rush. We want quality, not speed. Here's the deadline. We're not going to, it's not a peekaboo ad where it comes off, disappears in 24 hours. I think a lot of candidates are feeling the pressure now. They're like literally saying, we've got to get in quick because, they're going to knock the job ad out. So you've got to kind of commit to give people the time. Otherwise, how can you expect a quality application? Okay, cool. Just notice the time, folks. We're literally going way over. Let's go a quick round robin. We're going to go and give a recommendation to someone who's listening to this and they're thinking, you know what, absolutely, I'm going to try and do an experiment. I'm going to try and roll out a CV-free approach, at least in some part of the recruiting sort of population I've got. What's the advice you'd give to that person? Things that they should look out for, that they need to bear in mind before they launch this. Let's go with you first, Matthias.
If you don't have a CV, what is your criteria to say somebody processes or not? So be mindful of what you want to assess. and what you want to, how to assess it as well. And then once you have this in order, then you go for it, and then you understand and make the decision. But also use the opportunity by clearly communicating this to candidates. We are not looking for your CV out of these reasons. This is what we aim for. Here we go. Looking forward to this. And then maybe also share results with them. Yeah, why not? Why not just making this a learning opportunity in the very beginning? Yeah, instead of just getting an ugly rejection mail. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, really good. So quick, get underline, basically understand what you're looking for and understand how you're going to assess for it. Like just don't go blind and say no CV. And then again, you're going to have all this other information coming in and you've got no clue how to make a decision. JT, go to you. What's your recommendation?
Big plus one, Matthias, on the empathy side for your candidates. They put a lot of time into these, so you want to be sure that you're respectful of that. I think for introducing this into your company, a great opportunity to do this if you have a role where the talent pool is like in the hundreds or like less than 300 people in the world would fit this role. You're going to take 9 months to a year to fill it. When you finally find that one person who's is good enough and willing to come on board, or you can kind of like start something new and try an experiment and see if this is going to work for you, and say, let's post it, but let's not look at resumes. Let's look at behaviors and go through this process. The prep is critical, identifying your behaviors. And I think the difference of skill and behavior is you're identifying of what you want people to do, not what you want them to be. So it's how do they react to what it is that you need them to do, and not the skills that they're coming to the table with. Because everybody comes from different places and different backgrounds. When you actually need the work done, what do you want them to do when they do it? And so you're identifying those behaviors and questions relative to that. And that's where you're going to really see people shine in the application process.
Yeah, great stuff. Tony, your thoughts and recommendations?
When you're thinking of piloting this, perhaps don't do what a lot of organizations do, which is decide to pilot it with a high volume role. Instead, as TA and people leaders, let's actually role model this and pilot this approach from within our own teams, so that we're hiring a recruiter or a people professional within our own team, so that we can really truly see the benefit of how this will work effectively right throughout. Don't just stick it to a call center or customer service job because we think it's an easy fix. It's actually far more effective to see it from all aspects of the process, every angle from every stakeholder's point of view.
You've just introduced a revelation to me. Well, the recruitment team itself is probably the worst culprit of prestige-based hiring, aren't we? Seriously. Like we look at 5 years of this and work for that company, and that's therefore good. Like when we test people in this way, goodness me. Cara, final thoughts for you, recommendations that you want to give to someone who's giving this a go.
I would say you have to build trust with the business, most importantly. So your hiring leaders have to trust you know what you're doing. So your teams need to understand the role. They need to understand behaviors. They need to understand skills. And the business needs to trust that we are going to deliver great candidates without them having to. This is what should be happening every day in a recruitment world anyway, that the business shouldn't really be reading CVs anyway. So they got to trust you. You just give them great people. That's what we do. So it is for me about building trust with your hiring managers. And we didn't actually.
That is. And that's a new topic for Brainfood Live. Like, how do we build trust with hiring managers? That's a topic we should actually have a discussion with, because a lot of people are saying absolutely, but how do you do it? And in fact, how do you get better at it? Because a lot of people are just doing it through charisma alone. It's like, yeah, I'm just gonna be a charming MF and make sure I'm gonna convert all these people. No, there's got to be a technique to do this properly, right?
Deliverables. It's delivering the right people to build that trust.
That's it. Give yourself space to work with. Okay, folks, we've come into the end of this. Jesse, I know you want to say something, but I've got to let these friends go because they've basically got days to get on with. So thank you so much for everyone joining. JT Haskell, great to see you on the show. Thank you for joining us. Matthias, great to see you again. I'll find an excuse to come to Berlin soon. We'll catch up. And Tony, great to see you. Thanks for contributing so much for the conversation online and now now on screen. And Cara, wonderful to have you on the show and sharing your experience. We'll have to probably bring you back to get an update to
Anytime.
see how it's evolved, because this is quite a new experiment. So let's see 6 months, 12 months down the line where we're at. Cara, wonderful to see you. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Cool. How very interesting that was. Lots of things. I learned loads there. Principally, that there's actually lots of reasons to do it. It's not just one reason.
Yeah, and I think also that it's possible to do it, like the companies are starting to do it, and that it comes back to, I think, good foundations. Really, you need to train people, like JT was saying, there's like a period of transition. It's going to be messy, but like just start the process, do it properly. Like it's a change project, trust, like there was a lot of things in there. I think for me, I was going to say mindset, like the mindset of the team. It needs to be like, throw out what we used to do, like throw away what you always did. Stop thinking about how you used to assess a CV and think about how would you do this if you could design it from zero. Like get creative with it, you know?
Yeah, you could challenge people to talk about design from first principles and so on. And yeah, there's lots of different ways to. We didn't bring in the angle that I wanted to actually, but maybe that's part 2 for this, which is how does AI kind of actually accelerate the requirement to actually move down this road? Because if we are now understanding that most CVs will eventually become AI generated, and not only that, but personalized, customized to the job advert you put in, we're going to stop paying attention to it. Like the signal to noise is going to the ratio is going to go the wrong way. So we're going to have to do something different. And perhaps video is one of those techniques. So yeah, maybe that's the second one we're going to do. Anyway, folks, we have to leave it there. We're running out of time. Thanks for watching. We have got a big week next week. Why? Because it's a record-breaking triple header, folks. Yes, there's not one, not 2, but 3 Brainfood Lives next week. Can you believe that? I don't know why it's operated this way, but there is. Monday, we're going to have LinkedIn Hiring Assistant demoed by no other than Harry Srinivasan, VP of Product of LinkedIn. He's going to come on our show and he's going to demo right in front of us. You have to be there for it. Make sure you register. It's on 6 p.m. UK time because it's basically optimized for Harry. He is in San Francisco, but register for it anyway. You'll be able to watch it from the horse's mouth, so to say, how it looks. Thursday, we're going to do how career pages that work. How do you design a career page that works? And by the way, works doesn't mean just getting lots of traffic. It means getting the right candidates into your top of funnel. Do you know the techniques to make sure to do that? We've got some amazing guests for that. Bas van Hattel's joining, Coast Versus joining. Loads of people that know about EB are joining that show. That's on Thursday. And then on Friday, normal time, we're going to do Hiring Manager Self-Serve, the show that basically we failed to get on with because we had some technical issue there. We're going to replay that. With the advances of technology, is the future going to go back to the past in the sense that a lot of the recruiting work that we're currently doing may be pushed back to the hiring managers to do? For example, outreaching to candidates. Guess what? Candidates much prefer to get outreached by the hiring manager than the recruiter. We didn't want the hiring manager to do that. It took them a long time to type. But these days, when you've got auto-generated messages that's personalized to the candidate, why should that not come from the hiring manager identity? What does that mean for the future of us? So you got to make sure you join for that as well. That's on Friday next week. Anyway, super busy. Get your weekend in, get rested, because you're going to join us all for those 3 shows. We will see you next week, multiple sort of episodes. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. We'll have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me again, Han. We'll see you again soon. When you're in Berlin, make sure to reach out.
No, I don't know when I'm going to be in Berlin, to be honest. I'm usually already there. I'm usually doing multiple times, but there's no reason to do it.
Organize something.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to go.
Cool. I'm going to be in London. We can see each other.
When are you in London?
I think the 18, 19, 20 of June.
So are you serious?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing here?
Doing an event.
Sorry, that was quite aggressive. It was like,
what am I doing there?
You're more than welcome to come to London, but what are you doing here?
No, I'm doing an event, more to come on that, and catching up with people in London that I haven't met, that I know through I mean, we've met in person, but some people haven't met in person. I'm just, LinkedIn friends or video friends, so I've got to meet. But yeah,
let me know when you're here. I'm definitely here until the 19th now, I think. So 19th, yeah, definitely. Actually, I'll probably here till the 20th. But yeah, let me know when you're here. We'll definitely catch up and do something.
Sounds good. Well, then I'm going to jump off,
All
and
right.
thanks so much for having me.
No worries. See you later.
Bye.